Thanks everyone for attending the second session on in the DFMPC and CHSE Professional Learning Series on AI tools and the learning and teaching landscape. So today is going to be a bit of a practical session, and we're going to showcase three tools that you can use. One that students can use, one that you yourself can use, and the third being one that you and students can use for research. Although students can also use ChatGPT. Yeah, so that's basically what today's session is going to be about. And yeah, please feel free to, while we showcase how to use the tools, that you go along and do that yourself as well. And now just trying to, there we go. Okay, so the same as last week, before we start, we just want to ask you to, in a sentence, write the following. What is your understanding of AI now? So hopefully you attended last week's session on Tuesday, and then also the Friday session on AI. And with regards to that, what is your understanding of AI in higher education now? And then the second part, which I'll post the Jamboard now, what AI tools have you tried out since? And then on the Jamboard, just mention the tool and a brief description of your experience of using that tool. So let me just quickly post the Jamboard. Okay, and I'll post it in the chat. And then for the duration of the session, just please feel free to also, on the third one, so on the third slide of the Jamboard, just post questions or interesting information that you have found. So let's see what people are saying. Okay, so the first post from Mohammed is AI creates transformative learning opportunities.
Does anybody want to put up their hand and speak? Tell us your sentence. Okay, Yanis. Stephen Pence has just put in the context of higher education, AI is a tool that can be used for teaching and learning, but using the algorithmic potential to organize large amounts of data, plan and summarize and row, but I'm guessing it says more. So yeah, totally agree. And then there's also it's about and especially within the healthcare system, it actually can help bridge the gap with technical, limitations, ethic, and clinical usage and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a big scope for it.
Christine, can I put you on the spot? Do you want to just tell us what you wanted to write?
Sure. Basically, my sentence was but 3 words. AI is inevitable. It's going to change the way we work, the way students will be working in the future. So we might as well learn to use it ourselves as well.
Thank you. I think that's yeah, it's a very important point. It is inevitable. Okay, so no other feedback around what your understanding of AI? Anyone else wanted to put their hand up? Yes, Shira.
So I'll give you the old-fashioned perspective, which is that I do think we need to understand maybe the two variations or origination points in AI. So looking at what Stephen says in terms of looking at large data sets. So our understanding that the processing power is now so big that something can look at huge data sets and look at predictive value of what the data tells them. And that's one kind of AI. But I think we really, in teaching and learning, can focus on the other kind, which is the kind where the neural network of thinking is actually the thing that they're trying to replicate. And I think the answers for some of the questions to that kind of AI, we still don't understand how the machine thinking, inverted commas, got there. So I think it's important when we look at AI as a tool as to what kind of AI it is that we're actually using. So if you're going to use AI for radiology detection, then you've got huge data sets that you're just comparing and pattern recognition with. But if you're using AI for developing discursive essays and argumentative essays, then maybe you want the other kind. So I do think that it's something that we need to see the limitations of and the opportunities with when we use it as a tool. Thanks.
Thanks, Shira. Totally agree with that. And I was on a webinar, international webinar last year about advances in the teaching and in education technologies. And the big thing was, yeah, data, big data, especially. And education institutions will actually have to start investing in big data to actually, for this reason, for you giving information to AI to help with administration, with content, with a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, that's right on the ball. It's with what's happening in the world.
So, but I also agree with Shira in terms of that you kind of need to understand a little bit about what type of AI you're using, whether it's for big data or natural language processing and neural networks and so forth, and how that is appropriate. But I think that the other thing around that is that if we do sort of use the different types of AI, or try to explain, it might overwhelm lecturers about with regards to the not like going into the nitty-gritty of how the AI itself works, because it is very complex. I think so for the health analytics students, we've been trying to discuss the projects around data science and what they need to do. So we've been learning a little bit around the different types of how machine learning works to recognize data and apply that. For example, the one project that we were thinking about was a project that Stephen is leading around digitizing the records in the Adler Museum, and that you would use OCR to extract the record. So you would train the algorithm to identify the handwriting, and then from that you would extract the information of the patient records and so forth. And then having discussions with computer science, they told me I'm completely wrong, that it's nothing to do with character recognition or natural language processing at first. It's about image recognition. So the first step in that is that you would use, and anyway, we've a lot of it was way over my head. And I realized like using that makes it a little bit complex if we go into the depth of what the AI behind it. Stephen.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to share something that I saw on social media, which was looking at which industries have taken up AI following what kind of the ChatGPT revolution, if you like. And it was just showed a very simple bar graph, and it showed that the tech industry and business, finance and banking and education were like the biggest sectors that were working with AI. And that the health sector was actually almost non-existent on that graph. Like it hasn't quite caught up. So I just thought it was an interesting observation that there's this huge potential, but the health system itself has to still adapt and kind of shift and change its processes to be working with this tech.
That is so true, Stephen. All my research for today's and next week's, I've actually found a whole lot of papers that actually state that especially even in health education, it's not picking it up, but a lot of private entities are including it within, the structures of like hospitals, clinics, and stuff like that, especially radiology. If I got that right, yeah, right. They're actually using it to help out with imaging and stuff like that. And then they're also trying to add in for your triage, and then also in hospitals for patients' files and documentation. So there is, in the private sector, there's a couple of businesses, a couple of tech companies that I actually have, that's what their job is to actually use artificial intelligence to improve quality and stuff like that. But it's so hard to actually, it's not integrated fully all over, and it's also, especially in South Africa, maybe because of costs and all that, it's not easily recognized. And then, as I'm going to say afterwards at near the end, I'm going to actually just give a rough introduction to it, or summary of what I found. Yeah, it's something that needs to be implemented already through the education process. So then, but healthcare professionals can actually see it and help implement it, or find ways to actually become more innovative within their spaces.
Thanks, Adriana. Stephen, just another thing on that. I think part of the reason why it's not really being adopted as much in health systems or in the medical field is the legal legal requirements and landscape that I think makes it very a bit more difficult to adapt. Or that's just what I think. But yeah, it could actually be a interesting project as well for the honor students to like try and understand what are the barriers around that. But anyway, moving on. So I just quickly looked for a landscape around from 2020 November till now, what sort of organizations has started up as a result of the AI revolution. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of companies. So I unfortunately can't see the top part now, but audio code, chatbots, video platforms, search, gaming, data. So you can see from November till now, there are lots of companies that have been established, and it sort of comes back to Christine's point around AI is inevitable. I think we are going to see a lot more companies and tech startups, educational tech startups and so forth coming into the space. I didn't actually look for what AI educational technology companies there are, but I'm sure if we look, there would also probably be a lot. Okay, right. So then the next part is, and just before I hand over to Adriano to go over how to use ChatGPT. So we're going for this part, we're going to show you how to use ChatGPT and then show some examples of how we used it, and then also ask people in the audience to showcase some of the work that they've done around using ChatGPT for learning or teaching. But before I hand over to Adriano to show how to use ChatGPT, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Adriano, over to you.
Yanis, still having the same problem.
Still having the same problem.
So
okay.
could you just take over? Sorry.
Sure, no worries. Okay.
The one big issue with ChatGPT, if there's too many people on it, then it will not allow you in. So yeah, apologies. I've tried since Q2, and I still haven't been able to get into ChatGPT.
Yeah, so they do have a paid for version now where you can say upgrade to plus, but the free versions works really well. The only downside is what Adriano mentioned in that there are peak times and then you can't get in. So one of the things that I do is, so once you're logged in, it's not, it's like you logged in and then I find it that as long as I keep a window open for ChatGPT, it will always be there. It won't log out. But the other day, Richard tried to join and to use it, and it wrote him nice poems about why it's offline. So he had to wait quite a while to actually get access to it. But this is basically what the platform looks like. Just before I go through this, can I just have a hands up who have not played around with ChatGPT? Okay, quite a few. Okay, so let's quickly, thanks. So this is basically what the platform looks like. And it gives you the chat option in the top. So basically you would I didn't want to go to the login screen because then I was also scared that it would do the same with me as Adriano. So I didn't close my windows so that I can still be logged in. But this is basically what the platform looks like, and so when you want to create something, you just put in the new chat, and then you basically type out what you would like to do, which I will showcase in a minute. And basically, as you can see, I've got quite a few chats on the side, and I kind of keep a stream open for the type of work that I do. So that makes it quite useful. So for we're currently designing the health system science honors course. And I would, for example, for health analysis and quality improvement, have one chat that I dedicate only to that sort of work. And because I mentioned previously that if you train the model and you feed in a lot of information, it starts getting more and more used to what you are feeding in and give better and better advice, or that's the sense that I've experienced with it. So yeah, I feed quite a lot of information into the chat, and then I start using it to design. And I'll show some examples of of how we used it. Yeah, so then you just go to, new chat, and then you can start typing in whatever you would like to do. So I'm going to take the example of one of these sessions that that we developed, and let's take how do you measure quality, for example. Okay, so we can take that, and then I would say the more parameters you give ChatGPT as well, the better the outcomes are. So for example, what I would do is I would say, I want to create an online learning session of an hour. It needs to have, we use a deep, like I put in the tenets of deep and meaningful learning, that we bring in real world applications, self-directed learning activities, reflection, etc., etc. So then I would say we want to create a session. And it should already know a little bit about the BHSC honors, because I've fed in a lot of information into the okay, sorry. Okay, with purpose of the session. Okay, purpose to unpack. This is an then I just say there you can see it started developing the learning outcomes. So understand the concept. So you can, for example, ask it, okay, instead of start with understand, because the first one is not a learning outcome in the traditional sense with having verbs. So you can ask it to start with the verb and so forth, and then identify the different dimensions of quality improvement, explain the key principles and techniques used in measuring quality, and apply their knowledge. So we would use these and then obviously edit it and add to it, and see whether it fits in with the session that we want to do. If not, I might actually give it more information, because my purpose of the session might have been a bit vague. Okay, and as you can see, it doesn't give you the information. It just says introduce the topic and the purpose of the session, briefly explain what quality improvement is and why it is important. So what you could, for example, do on that part is say, okay, how would you, so let's maybe do that. Use and then it would elaborate on that. So to introduce the concept of quality improvement, I would start by explaining that healthcare is an ever-evolving field, and one of the most important aspects of healthcare is ensuring that patients receive high-quality care. And then you can sort of just expand on it, and obviously use whatever you want to go back and develop your storyboard. We did, for that, as I mentioned previously, we do fact check and make sure that the information that it provides is accurate. And one of the things about ChatGPT is that it's not entirely it is not entirely accurate all the time, so you definitely need to read through the script and make sure that it is yeah, that it's obviously truthful and accurate. And part of what we would sometimes do is, like, I'm trying to think, like we did a session on systems, like review research for the research methodology module, and it gave the different types of review research, and then I copied and pasted that into Google Scholar, and then used that as a starting point to then elaborate my the rest of the information that that you can use. And I see, sorry, Liz, let me just quickly, I saw the thing pop up. Can you give it specific references to use? So you can't give it references to use, but you can copy and paste articles. So I've done that previously, that I would take a health analysis and quality improvement article, and I take the information and paste it in, and then I say specifically based on this publication or research, and let's see if I have an example of this. I asked it to write a poem for around health system science the other day, but for Amy Fringe. But yeah, and we tried to reimagine or like revamp some of the abstracts for Amy that we were using. So we did that. So it's not this one. I think it might be the one that says quality is important. Okay, there you can see another article. Okay, I asked for specific frameworks. There. Okay, so yeah, I fed in an article. So the article was on, where is it? So I said, considering the following. I didn't give the name because the only thing is that there's a limitation to how many characters you can feed in. So as you can see, I fed in starting the abstract, and then a piece, and then and then another piece. So I had to break it up to actually feed in the article, and then based on that, I asked it to. So where was that? Okay, so the quality of health, no, that was it. We want to give a lecture to quality improvement of the health system with a specific focus on measuring quality. Use this research paper shared above and your understanding of measuring quality, because I've previously trained it on measuring quality in the health system, and write a script of 8-minute video explaining the importance of measuring quality. How do you measure quality, and bring in a real life example. And then it gave me that script, which we edited quite a lot because there was a bit of repetition. There was like quite a lot of repetition in it. For example, yeah, I also didn't think the real life example was appropriate, but it did give some great ideas for us around how to do that, or to a starting point. So if you've got writer's block, and you're not entirely sure what learning outcomes you might use for a session, it's a really good starting point to get you to think about that. But as I mentioned previously, it shouldn't be the you shouldn't just copy and paste. You should definitely curate whatever is fed into, well, yeah, whatever you get from this to then go and develop your session. The other thing I quickly wanted to show with Lazelle's question around references, you can also ask it. There was something I did around customer centricity. So we're currently working on a book chapter on defining health entrepreneurship in the South African context, and I wanted to sort of build around. Okay, so my question to it was, what is the value of customer centricity, and what is the value of building the organization around the customer need, to sort of link it to some work that on learning excellence that we've been doing. And then I asked it to give me some journal articles that highlights this. So it gave me those articles, and then what I did next, which I kind of wanted to show later on, but is use SciSpace to look for the article, because SciSpace is another AI tool that you can use to ask, for example, what are the key takeaways? Does this article mention the benefits of entrepreneurial mindset to student learning, or whatever the case might be? And it unpacks the article for you in detail. But I'll get into that in a bit. So then I would take the next step and use this to go and look in the articles and make sure that what was said by ChatGPT is actually, whether these articles can be used for the research that I'm currently busy with, or the session design that I'm currently busy with, and so forth. And you can ask it anything. So the next step is I'm going to ask you to give me some examples of what you would like to do. So whether you want to develop a rubric for something specific, or whether you want to create a self-evaluation checklist. So in last week's session, I mentioned that I wanted to create a self-evaluation questionnaire for students to evaluate their self-directed learning abilities. Now, as you can see, it's not a straightforward journey. Like it started with, it gave me that, and then I had to go and say, well, develop a self-evaluation questionnaire for students to evaluate the self-directed learning abilities, focusing on using technology, motivation, time management, using resources, reflection, setting goals. So I kind of had to give the dimensions. So I had to go a little bit further, and then it gave me that. And then I said, okay, well, this didn't really work for me very well. So let's take another approach and say, list all the characteristics of self-directed learner. So it then listed that. And then I said, okay, well, based on that, use this list that you generated. And from there, it started giving a lot more, better questions, as you can see. And then, as I mentioned previously, I then went further and I shared this self-evaluation checklist with a group of people to evaluate what ChatGPT was saying. So not just me, I read through it and deleted some that I felt wasn't appropriate, but in terms of getting a little bit more validity and reliability to it, I then shared it with a larger group to make sure that it's a good self-evaluation checklist. And then just the last thing I'll show, and then I'm going to ask you. So I asked it to create a rubric. So please create a rubric for this presentation on developing your problem statement, research question. Consider the requirements given to students to design this rubric. So I put in the information that we gave to students. So it's all of that. And then it came up with this. And then I said, okay, can you turn the rubric into exceed expectations, meet expectations, and doesn't meet expectations? And that's basically what I got. And then I could just read through it and make sure that it addresses everything that I want. So previous rubric that I designed, for example, didn't have anything on grammar and spelling. So I had to like read the rubric and then feed in more and more and more information, and also rewrite some of the exceed expectations and so forth, feeding it into the system, and in that way it kind of develop the rubric. The one question that people might ask is, well, is this actually saving time? Because it seems like I'm still feeding in a lot of information and so forth. And I definitely think it does still save a lot of time. But it's not just about the time saving, it's also about making sure that I'm not missing anything with regards to the rubric development. So I can see the luck in this rubric that there's things missing, but it's so I can then go and I can further expand on it. So I think that's one of the benefits of using it. And I'll stop there. I think I gave enough of an overview of how it could be used for learning and teaching. Okay, let's see. Did anyone give let me just quickly go through. Okay, when you talk about training the AI system, how do you do that? Is it by giving it information like the article, or is it a different process? So it's basically giving it more information and giving it articles and so forth. So if I feel that so one of the things that was mentioned last week is that it doesn't understand the South African context that well. So then I would feed more information into it to understand the context. Or if I had to go and rewrite a piece that ChatGPT gave me, I would also feed that into the system. So then it can kind of start identifying what's missing from the writing. And I find that it does help a lot in terms of it becoming more and more accurate, and just feeding in a lot of the specific articles that we want it to use to situate the health systems science or health analysis and quality improvement module in. It definitely becomes more and more specific. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And then I'm wondering. Okay, I'm wondering how this can. Well, Lizelle, let's open your question for to the group. How do you think it can be used in the clinical space? One of the assignments or the activities that I thought I had was sort of let people design a rubric for a clinical activity. But in terms of students or anyone, how do you think it can be used in the clinical space? Any ideas?
Sorry, Hannes, I was just thinking that we all have our procedure checklists, and if you're teaching, then you give them a checklist to say these are the steps that you have to follow, kind of thing. So even if we ask ChatGPT to create a checklist, or the students to form a checklist and then evaluate to see or to critique it, to say that what will be the implication or the implications if we follow those steps. But I don't know if it's going to add value or just for the sake of using it or including it. So we have to be considerate of, is it really relevant to the space where we are in, or I don't know.
So I still think that it can be used to help you think through, you know, the structure of the checklist, for example, or something that you missed. But yeah, I think that's a very it's a very set checklist and so forth. So I guess it can't really add value there. But I think part of it is to sort of unpack, yeah, whether it good or not. I don't think that it's a tool that can be used everywhere. But in certain spaces, it definitely can make a difference.
But Giannis, can I just have a point there? Chatbot has certain functions. It's interacts with conversational dialogue. There's prompts, how to use it. You can use it very effectively for coding, as a lot of people have found. But then also, like Giannis has just showed us, there's an educational context where it actually makes life a little bit more easier, or gives you direction, or creates a spark of inspiration or creativity. For what Lizelle is mentioning, there are a lot of other AI applications that can be made using similar processes like chatbot, like that. What is that? The language that was used. Sorry, I forget the name, but it's the way that AI was. What Prof. Bosman said. How it actually interprets language and gets information from. And by using those other processes, but using the basic understanding from chatbots or from AI, you could actually understand on how other AI apps can be incorporated and can do the stuff that you have said, or you have described or mentioned.
So just to build on that and to Lizelle's point, what I think, Lizelle, what you said about fit for purpose is very important. It goes back to the like, yeah, an argument in higher education and learning technologies integration for a very long time is around that you shouldn't just use technologies for the sake of using technology. It should enhance whatever you are doing in the teaching and learning space. So it should speak to the learning outcomes. So therefore it should be about purposefully selecting it, whether it can contribute to, you know, students using it for something specific, but then it should be there to address one of the learning outcomes, and if it's the best way to address the learning outcome as well, I think that's important. Although I think we also need to balance that a little bit with giving students exposure to different tools, but the main point being that it should be about reaching the learning outcomes. So yeah, what you say is very, very important.
And in the chat, I've just sent now, it's called Hugging Faces. But if you have problems with doing prompts, this is actually a great way to actually create ChatGPT prompts. It's a lot easier. It's a lot, you can actually just say who you are and what you want to do, and then it'll actually create the prompt for you, and you can actually start from there as well.
Right, the second, so I'm going to come back to, so if somebody could just please type in something that they would like to do. So whether you want to design a rubric for a specific activity or something, just please type that into the chat and we'll quickly run something through ChatGPT. But while I wait for that, I quickly just want to do the second tool, which I also find very valuable, and that is Scholarcy. If you download the widget as the Google to be part of what do you call it? the Google tools, then it's free. Otherwise, it's paid for. So if you integrate it to Google, you don't have to pay for it. So basically, you open up an article in Science Direct or anywhere else you want. You can download it as a Word document, and it kind of highlights the key concepts. So it would tell you this is Lean Six Sigma, it's nursing home. So a lot of it's around that, and health systems. Okay, so from that you can kind of already see whether this would work, and then it gives you an abstract of the abstract, and it would give you the synopsis, and then it breaks down the article into gives you a condensed version of the article, which I also find very useful. So there you can see it gives you the background, the methods, the results, the conclusions. So it's pretty cool for students to also use, and it can help you to quickly go through an article. So that's the other tool I wanted to show. And is there anything yet in the chat? Okay, nothing yet. And the last tool I wanted to show is SciSpace, which I already kind of showed you. And there's quite a lot of research tools that's cool to use, like Research Rabbit, SciSpace, and Writeful, which is very much like Grammarly, but it was trained on research papers. So the feedback that it gives you is a lot more research centered. Okay, so for example, I showed you there, you can literally ask what is in the paper. So the core message. So if you look at this, I started by asking what are the key takeaways, and then it would say this paper discusses the use of serious games to support the development of an entrepreneurial mindset in university students. And then, does this article mention the benefits of an entrepreneurial mindset to student learning? Yes, this article does mention the benefits of an entrepreneurial mindset to student learning. It states that such a mindset can help students develop skills like problem solving, critical thinking, etc., etc. And then, what are the benefits? So it gives me the entrepreneurial mindset helps students develop problem solving. So it kind of gives me the same, but it obviously within the context of what the article is saying. And then I ask, how does entrepreneurship education enhance the student experience? What are innovative ways of teaching entrepreneurship? And then, is a country specific definition of entrepreneurship important? And then I just made sure whether it is specifically in this article. So is this mentioned in this article? And then it just gave me the same feedback. And does this article mention why a country specific definition? Okay, sorry, that was exactly the same thing. Yeah, so I asked it a lot of questions and just read through it. And yeah, so I find this very helpful to kind of summarize and make sure that the paper is to direct my questions for the literature review, to ask the specific questions around what I'm writing about, and to get the evidence that I need to support my argument, and then obviously read the paper further. But yeah, it's okay. Let's see what. Well, Adriano, I think let's just still take the create a checklist of what you need to ensure a PDF PDF is accessible. So let's take that and let's make a new chat. Let's see the 6 minutes. So while we do this, are there any other questions, comments? And actually, Christine, I think I'm going to leave that because I see there's 6 minutes and Adriana quickly just need to finish off. So I'll hand over to him. Adriana, are you chatting?
I was to myself. It was very, yeah, weird. But yeah, okay. So there is another way that it can be used in education and for people. Yeah, is you can actually, there's an app that you can actually add to your Google browser that actually helps you with YouTube videos. So you've got a 41-minute video here on AI in healthcare with chatbot. And I'm very lazy and I don't really want to go through all of this. So what the app does is it actually adds a summary tab here for you, and it'll open it up into chatbot GPT. And hopefully that now I've got a bit of space, but hey, yeah, we have capacity. But what it does is it will automatically summarize this whole video using the transcripts and give you a paragraph on what the video is about and what the important points are. So, which is actually a really nice thing to actually have and play with. Also, I've got, it's actually called Clasp. It's actually for highlighting text and finding it on the web. But then what it does is it also adds it to, you actually add the actual AI summary on there. So yeah, it's Clasp, and you can actually download the extension and then it'll actually show the summary. Just a quick little thing that I wanted to show everybody that would actually make life a little bit more easier. Just the function that the chatbot generator that I mentioned is here. You can actually just say anything here and then it'll give you a prompt. Blend space, okay. This is another type of chatbot GPT alternative, but they say it's got superpowers because of the fact that it can actually help generate images as well. So as you see here, let's make that bigger. You know, write a a tweet from Twitter showing the new Twitter Blue subscription, and then create an image of the most beautiful place in the world, and it'll create images of that as well. So as you see here, you can actually see maths teacher, interviewer, English translator, travel guide, and stand-up comedian. So yeah, there's a couple of other alternatives for you as well. Let me see if I've actually added it. No. So yeah, I'm just giving you options here. I'm just giving you a whole lot of stuff, but you can play with it or not. This one I've shared with you in the chat as well. It actually just teaches you how to do prompting. The reason why I showed this is because if you want to include it into teaching students how to use it, you know, give them this this learning the prompt, so then they actually understand how to use it as well. So my last little bit that I want to actually say is that, especially with the education, there's a lot happening with AI. There's a big furore, and it's actually highlighted the powerful nature of what is possible and what is not. And I just want to lead with this to the next session and to the next series with Barika, because we need to prioritize teaching basic concepts of AI and machine learning. We need to figure out what the most important things are and use that as a foundation. And so once we have created a foundation, we can continually refer back to it and then grow if we need to, or connect to it to other concepts. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be pervasive in everyday practices that everybody will need to have some base level of understanding to at least evaluate the tools they're using. We do not need to understand to be experts in it. We do not have to develop anything. We just need to say, I don't think it works, or if it works, or I have a problem. I think we have a problem here. That's all we need to understand about it. We need to actually have an increase in transparency about when and how AI is used. Coming back to what Lizelle said, the limitations of this use within the given context. We need to ensure diversity in developing backgrounds and expertise, so that who will be using the technology in their teaching and healthcare practice, and those who decisions are impacted by the AI tools, such as students and patients, are involved. We need building an AI education, healthcare education tools that embrace and conveys the natural and clinically relevant uncertainty, diversity, and variability represented in human populations. I say this because of the fact that the problems with AI, especially when we try to create it for our specific spaces, they focus on standardizations and rely on biased data sets. And knowing that we actually have to create diverse groups or collectives that actually address this and actually help create better apps. We need to also create the awareness and expertise of AI throughout professional development. And we need to create a support system to let us know how to align and when to challenge AI recommendations. We need to build the curriculum that has purposefully integrated with AI to allow students to develop their human skills. We encourage all schools and facilities to offer courses and support for educators and challenge the new and shiny wholesale adoption of AI educational tools to one that is more considerate and realistic. This will ensure student benefit from AI educational tools, not just a select few. As part of that, hopefully we can think of how we can share resources, build a curriculum, we can share it. When we build a tool, we can share it. So we don't waste time recreating, and we can just get to teaching and learning. At large, we need to nurture the skills and interests of the future leaders who will be the who will drive innovation in this space. Yeah, that's where I am ending it. And the last thing that I would actually say is that from here on we actually have to start looking at ethical considerations to do with AI. And like, I know that when I was researching, I actually found a paper where they did one of the medical tests or exams in America at one of the universities with an AI tool like Chatbox, and it actually passed without any understanding or anything on going through the medical field. So that's where we actually have to start thinking about the limitations. Thank you very much for your time. And Yannis has posted a Padlet. We've actually created a Padlet. We decided that we need to create this community and this transparency. So what we need to do is we've got a Padlet page where anybody and everybody within the faculty can add tools that they found. They can add tools for teaching, AI tools for research, and let me just go. AI tools for research, interesting articles in AI in education, interesting articles in AI for health, and experiences and experimentations that everybody has done. I think this will help everybody actually understand and see and collaborate more better with each other. So yeah, any questions from here? Hopefully we've discussed a lot more in depth in chat box, and also giving you ideas and yeah, anything to do with AI. Any questions?
Great, thanks, Adriano. So just for next week is our last session in this series. We'll be touching on some of the limitations and workshop around, how can we overcome that, and how can we use AI, so now that you've seen the tools, how can we use the tools for teaching and learning? So brainstorming some ideas around how can we use it in the different spaces. And then after that, we'll be going into the importance of an academic integrity culture and how we would be, how can we develop that? Because I think, as Adriano alluded to, is that academic integrity is going to become a very important component now that we have AI. Right, yeah, and that's it from me. Shira, Richard, I don't know if there's anything from your side. And just before I hand over, just before you log off, please just write one sentence about how you found the session and what did you find most interesting. Yes, Moon.
Error, sorry.
Okay, cool. Great, then I think we can call the meeting to a close. Thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful afternoon.